Hi. Today I want to take a look at why our physical problems may not have the cause that we think. Why our physical problems may not have a physical disease process going on behind them. And I thought it'd be helpful to start by thinking about gardening. Now, I don't know about you, but I enjoy going out in the garden and tidying everything up. I really enjoy it, particularly in the spring and the autumn, that feeling of chopping things back, tidying things up, pulling the weeds out, big dandelions, pulling them out. Um, the problem is that I don't like to take time doing it. I like to just pull the dandelion off and don't necessarily get to the root. And you can guess what happens, that within a few days, particularly in the spring of doing that, the dandelions start to come up again. And my work, it looks like I haven't actually done anything. So I get a temporary feeling that I've actually achieved something, and you can't actually see that the dandelion's there anymore. But actually the root's left behind, and the dandelion springs up again. And I think often in medicine, and when we approach medical problems, we think very much like that. We want a quick fix, don't we, to our problems? We want something easy that doesn't involve a lot of time and effort. And so we want a pill, or we want a cream, or we want something quick. And over again, my patients, I give them options, and they tell me, well, I just want to get it sorted. I just want it sorted. But the quick fix doesn't often solve it. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always. And often there are other things going on behind the scenes. So I thought, to illustrate this, I'd tell you about a patient that I saw. Now, this lady was a student, and she came to see me because she was getting a lot of stomach pain, particularly after she'd been eating, and a lot of indigestion and acid. And this was getting more and more of a problem, and she was really worried. She'd Googled it, and she was really worried that she'd actually got a stomach ulcer. And so she was obviously quite distressed with it, and it was quite bad. We tried some simple things like Rennie's, well, like anti-indigestion medicines, and things really didn't improve a lot. So I referred her, and she had a test which checked out the lining of the stomach, checked what was going on, a telescope test. And they could see from that she didn't have an ulcer, but she did have a bit of inflammation in the lining of the stomach. And when you have that kind of picture, it's often linked with stress. So the next time I saw her to go through the results, we talked about that. And I started to ask her about stress in her life and when those symptoms with her stomach started. And they'd actually started in the sixth form at school. And in the sixth form at school, she'd suddenly started to really feel out of her depth with what she was doing with her work. She started to feel like she wasn't as good as the other people in the sixth form. She started to feel like she was going to fail. And that hadn't been something that had happened before. And I think some of the comments that had been made to her, or some of the things that had happened with the teachers, had reinforced that in her, that she wasn't good enough, she wasn't as good as others academically. So when she came to university, every time she had exams coming up or something to hand in, she got very, very stressed and had this fear of failure, that she wasn't good enough. And she'd noticed actually that the stomach problem she was getting also got worse at those times. So we were able to talk about that a little bit, and particularly we were able to talk about where we get our value from and our worth from, and are we actually defined by what we do, or are we defined by who we really are as people fundamentally? And she actually decided she would go and see one of the counsellors at the counselling service, and she had some sessions looking at value and worth and how we see ourselves, and are we just defined by what grades we get in our exams, or whether we pass our exams, or whether we succeed in that way. And that really helped her, and she started to see that actually it was good to do well in your exams if you could, but if you didn't, it didn't change who you were. And so fundamentally, she was able to be kind to herself and value herself for who she was, not what she did. And do you know what happened? The indigestion went away. The levels of stress in her life dropped, and the acid levels in her stomach dropped, and the indigestion symptoms went. And so for that lady, her physical symptoms were linked with things that were going on in her thinking and in her emotions and in those deep areas of how she valued herself. And by daring to spend the time looking at those things, she got better, she got more whole, not just physically better. And I think the top tip for today is to just think, am I willing to invest some time and effort to get below the surface, to get down to the roots that might be causing the problems that I'm having? Because if I dare to do that with help, then I'm going to come out the other end much more whole and well than if I just want a quick fix for that physical problem.